We work at the front end, working with clients as they evolve their brief, right the way through to production of design information for construction on site. So we're designers.
Our main role is to provide the vision of the architects and the client, but we make damn well sure that the mathematics is right.
At Heathrow, we talk about it's like operating on a live patient. We need to be ensuring that that's right first time. We can't have error, because that error might mean that passengers the next day aren't able to fly.
It's a really multidisciplinary project. We have everything from urban design, architecture, landscape, art and culture, ergonomics, security design, design delivery.
We're about 70 strong. We started up in 1987. And we've always been passionate about engaging with the industry, making sure we collaborate with others, that's engineers, clients of course, contractors.
We analyse situations and look at what are the challenges and what are the opportunities. Sometimes that's to tell our client not to buy a building, not to do a project. And sometimes it's to say, actually, if you want to buy a building and do a project, this is the way you might think about it.
So recognising the significance of design as a root cause for error, the GIRI community decided that what was necessary or what would be helpful was guidance for designers about what they needed to do, how they needed to set themselves up to make sure that their process generated error-free outputs.
What is done is given some key topics, key headlines, which I believe every designer and contractor should bear in mind as they go through their career, their process, their projects.
Getting the right team culture right from the beginning, getting like-minded people with shared objectives, with a sense of empathy, so that the culture of the project is really good right from the start. And that a client can help to do a lot, because they can select the right people, make sure they're empowered to do their jobs.
Creating a culture where people have very high standards, so they really do try and produce content that is clear, coherent, correct. So you build a culture of quality in your output.
We have a set of cultural values, which are integrity, respect, leadership and safety, which are really critical to the organisation and how we work together.
A good client will select the right design team and the right contractor and then pay them the right money. And if everything is driven by lowest possible price, then you don't want to be in that project race.
As the client, it is absolutely our responsibility to ensure the designers have enough time and resources to be able to completely interrogate and communicate the design so that we eliminate the most amount of errors we can.
It's often said that if you do something on the cheap right at the beginning, the cost will catch you out in the end, the cost will rise. So proper investment at the right time is actually a good investment for a stable, well-built project.
The whole process is deeply collaborative. It involves people from the totality of the supply chain, including clients, because it turns out that we're all in it together. The cause of an error may well be sit miles away from them and outside their organisation in a different part of the supply chain. And so we'll not sort this problem out unless people collaborate.
To make sure that we get that right collaborative relationship between us and the contractors, we have what's called integrated project teams. So kind of small collaborative team from HS2 working in the contractors team.
What collaboration does, it creates those safe spaces so you can hear everybody's voices and remove those assumptions that you may have made about different people and parts of their design.
Fundamentally, understanding constraints is the beginning of design. And once you understand the constraints, short-term and long-term, you can make a design that addresses the short-term and long-term problems. So don't think of compromise, think of understanding constraints as your design generator.
So design is a process, and for it to be done well, it needs to be well planned. So you need to articulate what your outcomes are, what the outputs are, what the inputs are, who the people are, in what order are they going to do their things, what are the interfaces, and you put all of that together into some kind of framework or plan, which you then deliver.
The first stage of the design is working out the potential for that site to receive a building, or for that building on that site to be adapted and extended. And that is the fundamental brief building exercise, which can take anything from 3 months to something like when we worked above Crossrail in an oversight development, 5 years.
In terms of being the client, we are the first step in the design journey. It is about understanding and communicating those design requirements very clearly, so everybody has the best possible chance of designing something without error.
I think in any project, the brief is the client's tool to make sure that they know what they want to start with, they don't mislead people, they set the programme up in the right way, and they're very clear about what their outcomes and delivery aspects are.
We provide information so that everybody in the team understands what we're doing, because that understanding means you got minimum amount of errors happening, and people can ask questions, and you're open to answer them.
We design viaducts. If we just do the engineering but without thinking about the environmental integration or the low carbon aspects or the kind of requirements of the local community, at some point we're going to have to go back and redo it, and that costs a lot of time and money. So trying to make sure that you've got all the right stakeholders in the room early and that you're having the right dialogue and you've got the right balance is essential.
In my experience, design can go wrong when you have made an assumption that the stakeholders understand what they want. So sometimes when they ask for a certain thing, and if you don't interrogate that or you don't understand what it is that they are actually asking for, you can design one thing and they need something else.
The design is a process, but it's not straight through. It involves different iterations, so we do things over and over again. It also involves, very importantly, the idea of opening up or expanding thought and ideas, and then picking one and closing down.
Opening up is very chaotic, and it's all about relationships and everything. It's the whole design process. Closing down is much more logical. Management, you need to have discipline in terms of some key milestones to provide information when it's needed, so that people can say, okay, we've ticked that box off. What's the next box we've got to tick? So you need both.
Increasingly, as part of a profile of better building and lower carbon and more intelligent construction, we are bringing our contractors forward in our engagement. We are working with some contractors from very early stages.
The contractors immediately got it, because they're much more aware of they see error in construction every single day.
In our organization, especially for the very big, tall projects, towers and things, we always go through a process. And when a contractor comes on board, we are prepared to redesign the process, because it's all about what the equipment that's available out there that can make it work, rather than saying, you just got to do this, you're the contractor, do what I tell you. No, you do not get the best product that way.
The last thing you want is to get right to the end. You've done all of your work, and then the first time you've properly checked anything, you find out it doesn't work, and you've got to go all the way back to the beginning.
If you don't do the right thing at the right time, then you have to rework it. And particularly with design, if you don't put the right design markers in at the right place, then you have to go back and do them again.
So I believe strongly in the idea of the sort of, if you like, you might call it a controlling mind on the design process, which might be the lead designer's job, but somebody needs to do it. Otherwise, things tend not to go well.
There are other recommendations in there about having a sort of independent kind of control over the project from the design perspective. And I think that's really important, to keep the bigger picture in mind, and not to get too caught up in the detail, particularly when there's a lot of complex engineering at stake.
So like a lot of these guidelines, it's also the attitude that you take to it. It's a reference tool to make you think harder and better about what you're doing.
The difference between high-performing projects and poorly performing projects is very substantial, like plus or minus 25 or 30%. And one of the characteristics of the high-performing projects is that they adopt best practice in relation to the design process.
It allows you to spend a bit of time thinking about each of those key elements in relationship to the work you do. And I do believe moving forward, it's likely that it becomes part of the procedures that people, some of it's ephemeral, but they're procedures which people have to embrace. And in doing so, I think it'll help our industry.